All right. Hello out there. So we are back to talk about family. And there's nothing more that I love talking about than family because family is the seed of change. So the system of the family, I believe why the Lord gave us the seed of a family was to change the world. And so with Adam and Eve, they had the opportunity to just be with God. Then because of sin, it became the childbearing and the working of the land, and they had to expand their understanding from just loving God and enjoying his presence to having kids and having territory and caring for the land and making sure the plants and the animals were well taken care of. And so I believe our call now is to get back to a place where the presence of God is chief, even with all the other areas of our life, all the other mantles that we have, all of those things being important, but only able to be done through that presence of God, through the power of God, through the Spirit of the Lord. So it's always been about his presence. It has always been about connecting with the source that is our strength in our life, in our very lifeblood. And I think these conversations that we have about family draw us back to that reality that it's all about his presence and being more like Christ, being more fashioned and shapened and sharpened and sanctified into that image of Christ. Okay, so for lesson 4, understanding, core focus, understanding how defensiveness blocks compassion, shuts down communication, damages trust, and creates emotional disconnection. Defensiveness. What is defensiveness? What are we talking about here? A working definition of defensiveness is a protective emotional response where a person prioritizes self protection over understanding, often through blame, correction, avoidance, justification, withdrawal, or emotional shut down. We didn't know defensiveness could be all of these things. Oh my goodness. When you heard defensiveness, you might have said, oh, that's not me, that's not me. But then this long list of things, like, oh, we surely could be doing something on this list of things. Okay, so we're going to talk about it, not so that we feel guilt and shame, but so that we can be free from defensiveness. We can talk about it. We can, with that awareness, make some changes, some shifts, know how our prayers can be prayed differently, knowing that we struggle with defensiveness. Okay, praying from that place of what we actually need help with through self-awareness. Okay, so what did you hear in that? The person prioritizes their self-protection. That's hard to hear because many of us, when we're being defensive, we may think, okay, I'm just trying to tell people what it really is, or I'm all about the facts. I want the facts. It's important for us to get the facts right. You could be one that's always watching over the facts. If they say one wrong thing, no, 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 that didn't happen, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. I can't hear anything you said. So we get the facts right. Maybe we're that person. Or maybe we're, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, whatever. Maybe we're that person. We just la 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 la. I don't want to hear anything. La 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 la. Oh, okay. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about it? This is a really hard day for me. This is a really hard day for me. Can we try like another time? And your spouse is like, what other time? I don't know. Just another time. Just pick another time. It's not now. We're avoiding. Who are we in this equation of defensiveness? Do we blame? Do we have to correct? Are we avoiding the conversation? Are we justifying? If you weren't so much like your mother, I wouldn't have to call you names. If you weren't so weak, I wouldn't have to be so strong and controlling. Withdrawal. I just go to my room, shut the door, and shut down for hours. I don't even come out to eat. I just completely withdraw my presence. That's a type of defensiveness, to withdraw our presence. Emotional shutdown. Do I just shut down emotionally? And it's this coldness where people don't know if you want them to live or die. They don't even know if you care about them because their emotional shutdown is so strong that they don't even feel like they're your daughter or your son anymore. It's so cold. Those are all connected to defensiveness. Okay. And sometimes we think defensiveness is just like fists up in the air and I'm fighting. No, it doesn't have to be. Defensiveness can be very passive. It is not fighting. It's not being uh, offensive, an offense to shut down or withdraw. We can look at that as, you know, it's a way to defend ourselves. We're not coming for anybody. But in that passive stance, it is very active. Active in creating an environment where defensiveness is sometimes rewarded, catered to, and pacified. Because what we said here, avoidance, your justification, your withdrawal, your emotional shutdown, it many times is a consequence. It's like a punishment to those that live with you. It lets them know, don't try that again. And it could just be how you operate. It could be something that you learned as a child. Maybe your mom did that, so you do that. Maybe your dad did that, so you do that. And so it's just how you have been trained to respond when you feel uncomfortable or when you feel attacked. But in that, it's about your self-protection rather than the system, living, breathing, becoming more alive and more Christ-like. So in it being self-protective, by nature, it's selfish. It's self-focused. That's what defensiveness is. And when we shut down, withdraw, we might say, okay, we're just removing ourselves. That's all I'm doing. I'm just removing myself. But what does your removal communicate to the system? It may communicate, don't hold this person accountable, or they'll remove themselves. We'd rather have them apart and then make things hard for them. We'd rather have them apart than feel really bad because they shut down and they remove themselves from us, like they don't love us anymore. So we pacify, we try to keep them close, even though in keeping them close, we are shifting and changing the system towards toxicity. Okay. That type of catering is not what we want in the family system. It's not healthy to cater to defensiveness, to cater to these negative behaviors. Okay, so let's keep going here. When we talk about defensiveness, butting in, correcting, blame shifting, minimizing, or making it all about you are connected to defensiveness. When we don't let other people speak and we're so quick to answer, is it about caring for them? Or is it about having us get the last word? Or is it about us feeling good about ourselves? Once again, if you think about what you do and how you do it, does it honor you or does it honor them? Does it protect you or does it protect them? And when we do things for our family system or in our family system, we want it to be for the good of the system. The system. As a marriage and family therapist, I'm not just looking at two people. If I have more than one person in the room, looking at a shared goal, a shared meaning, a shared value, a shared outcome for everyone involved. And that's how we have to live our lives as family. The quick to correct. Do we stay on the facts of I need to make sure all the facts are right before I can hear you? Like if someone's saying, Mom, I was really sad when you told me I was like I was like dad. And maybe dad is a substance user, never around, never connecting with the kids. And the child says, I felt really bad when you said that. And mom says, I didn't say that. I said, you really remind me of your father when you do that. That's what I said. Let's be correct about what I said. Let's be correct about the words that I used when I said what I said, because I cannot hear anything you say if you don't get the facts correct. Do you see how, in that example, the parent is making the child's response to how things hurt them about them, about what that parent needs to hear in order to address what's being said? And that same parent, if they're coming at the conversation that way, most likely they are not going to be willing to hear and do you form well. Because when we're doing you form, we are humble enough to see something from the other person's perspective with how they're bringing it versus needing to have a laundry list of ways someone brings you information. Now, that's not to say that a parent, a child should just be completely disrespectful, sharing things with their parent. The parent has a right to say, hey, I want to hear you, but your tone is so hateful that I feel disrespected as your parent. Okay? Because that's letting them know authority still is important. And authority is necessary for them to recognize in order for us to enter into this conversation in a God-honoring way. Okay, so that's different than you need to get the facts right. If that fact's not right, I'm going to call you out. And before that fact and you're talking about the facts and you're never allowing the person to talk about their emotions, that's a problem because you are assessing and analyzing before they can even feel comfortable enough to share with you their thoughts or feelings. Blame shifting. Well, if you didn't do that, then I could do this. Well, if I was your age, when I was your age, I didn't have it like that. You have it so much easier than me. It's minimizing. Well, I had a long day, and my long day, it matters. And because I had a long day, I don't feel like listening, and I. Making it about yourself. So all of these things, we might not think about it that way, but it's defensiveness. What happens in our nervous system when we feel shame, fear, or a threat arise, our heart starts to beat fast, and we might start to get flooded in our thoughts and flooded in our emotions. And there's this motor. I like to use the word of a motor. It's like a motor that runs faster. And that motor is in the direction of leaning on my self-protection and my fight, flight, or freeze. So we're not defending from nowhere. We're defending. We become defensive when we feel like we're under attack, when we feel like we are not being stewarded well, and we've got to fight for ourselves. Now, you might not look at withdrawal or shutdown as fighting, but it is kind of a freeze that's happening. Okay. Withdrawing, oh, it could be a running. You're running to the other room and barricading yourself. That could be fight, flight, or freeze. And defensiveness, defending yourself for whatever reason, leaves the system feeling, instead of empowered and assured and strong, leaves it feeling weakened. It lessens its power. And it, instead of feeling assured, it feels a low self-worth, a low esteem in that system. Because at the point where someone won't stay to be a part of the conversation, because someone won't let the conversation happen and breathe, sometimes others can feel like, okay, should I even share? Is it even worth? They don't even think that I'm worth the conversation, or they shut me down. They always think their way is better. So what does that mean about me? Maybe that means that I'm weak. Maybe that means that I'm stupid. Maybe that means that I'm not enough. So it's interesting how the defensiveness communicates something to our family. And our family, what we're getting from our family can be because of what has been communicated to them in our defensiveness. And when I say a fight, flight, or freeze, when we talk about that, we talk about that being a response, a survival kind of animalistic response. So many times when we're doing that, we don't even recognize that's what we're doing. Some of us may have learned these behaviors in order to get their way in control and make things go well with them. But for most of us, it's not that way. We're not using it as a way to control. It's just animalistic. It's what we do when we feel like we need to defend ourselves. And we don't know, we haven't even interacted with what does it mean for other people to be around me when I do that? What does it communicate to them? So this is going to be a really important session for us. Defensiveness blocks empathy and compassion. Why is that? Back to the self-focused and animalistic. Animals don't think about what's best for the other. They're not necessarily thinking about, if I give this person this, then that'll make them feel loved and assured. They don't think in feelings. We have high functioning capabilities, but our high functioning capabilities, our brain usage, can only be tapped into when we're not in this animalistic state. When we're in an animalistic state, we're not tapping into that higher functioning, thinking about feelings, compassion, empathy. We're just thinking about getting through the moment. We're just thinking about, how do I survive this? And for many of us, we were in families growing up where there's a lot of survival. And so that feels more comfortable to us than being able to enter into a conversation and stay there and grapple with the tough stuff. And so we've got to acknowledge that. Some of us are not used to this, so this is different. But I love that you're here and you're willing to shift and change and be made whole in this. How emotional rigidity can reveal self-focus or narcissistic traits. I call it self-focus. I think that many times goes over easier than narcissistic traits. But it goes hand in hand. The many times, and even research, we've seen narcissism cannot really be undone. It's a disorder that once a narcissist, you're once a narcissist, you're always a narcissist. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you're once a narcissist, you're always a narcissist. I believe that through self-awareness and through increased compassion, empathy, the Holy Spirit doing a mighty work in us, we can shift and we can change. And so if you're coming to this lesson now and saying, my spouse will never change from being a narcissist, there's no way. Let the Lord be the controller. Let the Lord carry the final word on all things. If he carries the final word, if he truly is the controller, your words of disbelief don't assist in any change in your spouse. You're speaking the language of not God. It's not God. The language of it'll never happen, he's a lost cause, is the accuser's language. And so we've got to shift our language so that we can make space for our spouse becoming less self-focused and more focused on the unit. And what's a beautiful thing, if you have a spouse that is more narcissistic in their traits, this is a perfect time to be doing this whole godly scaffolding. Because as you're doing it, they're becoming more self-aware. They're becoming more aware of where they're at on this spectrum. And if defensiveness is a huge issue, shame, emotional shutdown, fighting back, if all of that is a huge issue, this is going to get their attention prayerfully. We're doing this prayerfully, praying that God does a work in every one of our family members, including us. Okay? All right. So gray rocking or chronic emotional withdrawal can build a rhythm of disconnection in family life. So defensiveness can also be something that maybe we can take something from our therapist or counselor, like gray rocking or withdrawing emotionally for a little bit. We can take that, and I'm really speaking to counselors that are not holding the faith of Christ and the therapeutic methods. But therapeutic methods just alone can lead to being able to manage for a while. But that management, when done over and over and over again, day in and day out, can become defensiveness. If you withdraw yourself from your family, like your core family, your children, when they disappoint you, that can become toxic in your house. You're not communicating anything. You're just withdrawing yourself because you're disappointed in them. That can really bring about huge cutoffs within your children and their relationship. And they believe that they only have your love when they're perfect. And that can be very dangerous. And so some things that we are taught to do to manage gray rocking is like almost like shutting yourself down, so that others do not see your emotions, so that others do not, it's really used so that when others see you or experience you, they don't know what you think, they don't know how you feel, and so they cannot go off on a trail of, oh, you're scared, oh, you're sad, oh, you're angry right now, you want to be angry, because you're not giving them anything. But with doing that to manage, you can do it to a point where it becomes toxic. You have shut yourself down so much that you're not showing up anymore in rooms and spaces and systems that are safe, or in systems that you want to be safe. You're not showing up. And so you're putting a lot of pressure on the system to change for you versus allowing God to give you the strength to be a change agent in the system. All right, so how humility and regulation make understanding possible. With humility and regulation, it is so key. I talked about humility earlier. You being able to regulate the trauma response, being able to come out of that place of survival is so important for understanding. You're able to, like I said, use the higher functioning mechanism that God has given you as a human being. It's not coming out of that animalistic, what's happening? What's happening? People are looking at me. People are speaking to me. People are needing something from me and I don't have it. And you start freaking out and getting flooded and overwhelmed, and your body starts to have a stress response. Instead of doing that, you're able to breathe, rest assured yourself so that you can hear and then process information differently. And so your spouse might be hearing you, or even your teenager might be hearing you as, you're always angry at me. But they've got to rest and become at peace so that they can hear the information differently. They might be hearing it with a survival mechanism instead of a mechanism to be able to truly understand. Okay, so families learn to identify the patterns that interrupt understanding and corrode trust through the exercises that I am posting below. Also, you're going to see some scriptural pieces and be able to understand how the nervous system is actually responding to what they are perceiving as a threat. All right, the shame and emotional shutdown. My prayer is that the defensiveness overall will shift in your family. As you're doing these exercises, becoming more aware, putting it at the forefront of your mind, I pray that there's some shifting that happens in how you all communicate. And what will happen is the communication will become less about creating a space where you're comfortable and more about creating long-lasting change that will be legacy shifting for yourself, for your children, for your children's children. All right, lesson 4 is in the books. See you on the next one. Let's go. All right, we're back with lesson 5. Lesson 5, we are learning how to be curious. I love this lesson 5. It works for family, it works for friends, it works for staff, it works for your a CEO, it works organizationally. It just works to be curious and ask good questions. All right, so as we're learning how to be curious, we're learning how to be curious with gentleness, with patience, with wise questions that help people to feel emotionally safe as well as valued. Okay, with questions asked in curiosity, you'll be surprised what it does for the overall atmosphere, for the overall environment of your home, of your workplace. It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you ask in curiosity. It's amazing. All right. So, curiosity, what is that instead of? It's instead of assuming. When we know people or when we feel like we have a handle on people and how they function, we can come at relationships with this, oh, I know, I already know. I already know how they feel. I already know what they're thinking. I already have discerned well. I already get it. And assuming without curiosity can sound very demeaning to others in our space. Questions that open the heart is really important instead of feeling like an interrogation or we're cornered and yet when we need to give a good answer. All right. So when we're thinking about how we ask questions now, think about it. When people hear me ask them a question, do they think that I am interrogating them or that, I'm the authority and they just need to give me the best response? And if it's not the best response, then they're going to hear from me and I'm going to be upset. And what are they getting from me? And think about just people in your lives. think about your spouse. When you ask them a question, does it sound like you're curious, or does it sound like, where were you last night? What were you doing? Who are you talking to? Did it sound like that? Or did it sound like, oh, so where were you last night? I missed you. I love when you come home early. Did it sound more like, okay, inquisitive? Or did it sound like you were up to no good, weren't you? And with me saying that, you might be thinking, well, my husband's done this, or my spouse has done this. And I mean, I really am interrogating, like that. I really am trying to keep them in line because I know they can get out of line. Same thing with teenagers and children. I'm really trying to get them in line. Like, I'm not trying to be their friend. I really am not asking out of curiosity. I'm asking from a place of authority. Like, they better give me the right answer. Well, sometimes with our children, we do have to ask questions like, why are you home 2 hours late? You're supposed to be home 2 hours ago. What happened? Tell me. What's going on? Like, there's some authority in the voice, but there's also curiosity. Like, I'm hoping that you have a good explanation for this. I'm hoping, I have hope that you didn't just completely disobey me. All right. So it is more difficult for us when we've been betrayed. It is more difficult for us to be curious because we found that, look, I can't trust you. I've got to be on you. It makes me feel more in control. It makes me feel not more loved, but more, for some of us, we've said, okay, I don't have to necessarily feel more loved. I just have to feel like you're not getting something over on me. So when I'm asking all these questions and interrogating you, at least I feel like you're not getting something over on me. So it's actually to make me feel better. It really does nothing for you. Why this is going to be a challenge is because we're used to that dynamic. And we've said, because they betrayed me, there's a reason I'm doing this. I have a right to do this. But if you feel like you have a right to do that, but it undermines the strength of your household and the system, then we've got to think again about that right. Yes, you have the ability to do it, but if it's not building up the system, is it worth continuing to do it? So that's just something to think about. I know it's a difficult shift from my husband or wife betrayed me. I'm not going to interrogate them. I'm going to ask them things in curiosity. No, it's a big shift, but it's a good shift to make. If we feel like the only way for our significant other to be loving and not have affairs and be focused on us is by interrogating them and bullying them, that's a bigger conversation. That's a bigger conversation. Because this, all that we're talking about is about how to strengthen a system that everyone has bought into, they want to strengthen. At the point where our spouses continue to lean out and have affairs, are they focused on building up another system that is not even yours? It's big to, you know, something we need to talk about, but truly, everyone in this room, we got to be focused on building this system right here. And this system does well when we're curious. This system does well when we don't continue to betray trust. And that goes for children, that goes for parents, that goes for spouses. Okay, so one thing we talked about earlier was motivational interviewing and the importance of open-ended questions. So along with motivational interviewing, the reflecting back what the other person said, the summaries at the end of, those reflections, open-ended questions is a part of that. Instead of saying, why didn't you do the dishes? That's open-ended, but the tone is set. The tone is, I'm angry at you because you didn't do the dishes. So yes, we're asking an open-ended question, but it's closed. It's, I already know you didn't do the dishes, and I already know I'm mad at you about it. Another way to say that would be the dishes didn't get done. What can we do differently so that the dishes can be done every day? Is there something getting in the way of you being able to do the dishes on a daily basis? Can I help you figure out a plan for us to do the dishes on a daily basis? That is saying an open-ended question that we actually are wanting to come alongside and create a space of working together, working together to find a better solution. We hear that in the voice. It's, what can we do? How can we help you? That's perfect for a child. How can we help you get to a place where you're able to do the dishes every day? Instead of, why didn't you do the dishes? And having them give you a response, it's, what do you think we can do differently? And it helps them with their problem solving skills as well. Open-ended questions are a way for us to hear the other. When we have a question that's not in curiosity, but more assumption, we kind of put a ceiling on how the person can respond, because we'll see that they're actually responding to how we said it versus what we said. So why aren't you going to prom with the guy you like? That's a curiosity versus, so what happened with that guy you like? Like, I'm expecting negatives. And they will share their response based on what we say, how we say it. So instead of saying, well, actually, he's going with another girl, that's sad, and we can meet them in that place of empathy, instead of that response, we might get, he is such a, say all these bad, negative things about him. I hate him. Oh, he makes me so angry. And you're getting a response based on you already being negative. But is that child's heart, or is that child just seeking to be on the same playing field as what you have already shared? Are they just trying to meet with you in your negativity? And so it's just really interesting as you are more curious in your questions, how people respond to you. It changes things from being all negative, changes things from being all positive. It just changes things to being what they are. People just feel more comfortable sharing what it is. Okay. Permission to ask after understanding is so important. When we ask a question, it's important for us to ask permission to first say, okay, I understand you said this. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Okay. So after that, they show understand you show understanding by summarizing. It's really important to ask a question, but also be willing to say, I want to ask about this. Is this a good time? Do you have the capacity for this conversation? If I'm bringing up your father, and if you want to spend the summer with your father, is this a good time to talk about your dad, and what you want to do with the summer? Like, open-ended, or that's a closed, and those are closed question, but it leads to you being able to ask an open-ended question, checking to see, is this a time where I need to ask for permission? Say, okay, is this the best time for them? That's really important. It shows humility, whether it's your child or your spouse. Okay. And then compassion is being patient, showing mercy, and always moving toward the person. That question of curiosity is going to move towards the person, not towards what we want, but towards what the person needs to share with us and hear from us. Now, emotional intelligence is having a keen awareness of the tone of someone, the facial expressions of someone, the pace, and the meaning of what they're saying. So emotional intelligence is not just seeing, oh, or hearing them say something and saying, oh, I heard the words. It's you have to study the tone of voice. How are they saying it? Do they have an angry tone? Do they have a bitter tone? Do they have a sad tone? What is their tone? And being able to say, okay, that's giving me some information, their tone. Also, if you're getting mixed understanding, like their facial expression is happy, their tone is angry, you might ask, okay, I'm having trouble with how you're feeling right now. I'm seeing that you look happy, but your tone is angry. What are you angry with me? Asking, because some people have learned to like laugh when they're really sad and to be angry about everything. And so sometimes we have to ask for clarity because it doesn't make sense to what you're seeing. It doesn't make sense with the emotion. And that's okay. We just have to learn what that looks like in the structure of what we're seeing. Okay, pace. Are they talking really, really fast? Are they talking slow? And if they're talking fast or really slow, we might have to say, I'm having trouble understanding because of the pace. Or this is what I sense that you mean, but I'm not sure. I want to share this with you, reflect this back to you so you can let me know if I'm understanding correctly. All right, parents learn to ask questions that can build bridges instead of questions that create attention and a defensiveness. We talked about defensiveness, and sometimes questioning can lead us to becoming defensive instead of feeling like we can talk and expound upon what we mean, that it's a safe environment. So curious questions helps the bridge to keep being built versus the bridge to be torn down. So that is really important. And like we talked about with defensiveness, that can shift us from having defensiveness in our home to having a place where people feel loved, known, heard, and cared for. All right. So I'll see you on the next one. Let's go.